Good morning, everyone. So it's Thanksgiving Day for our chickens. I've pulled up all of our beans, and the chickens are loving that they're getting to snack on the roots and the leaves and everything they weren't supposed to touch the whole year. But we're taking these down to the chickens, pulling all of our roots and our crops that are kind of done for. And then I'll see y'all in the kitchen in just a little bit for us to make some pies and some desserts and stuff for Thanksgiving preparations. Okay, y'all, so next up is our apple pie. So down in our bowl, I just have 3 very large Granny Smith apples that I've sliced up. And I like to cut mine in the slices in half because I feel like I can pack in a ton more apples. But I have a few more in case we need a few more to really make this packed in. But I've also tossed them with about a tablespoon of lemon juice just so they're not browning a ton. They're going to brown a little bit, but not so much. If you have a deep dish pie dish, then you want about 6 cups of apples for this. I broke my deep dish, so we're left with my Dollar General one, which is not very deep at all. But I'm going to update our recipe just a little bit because my mom ordered a caramel apple pie the other night, like a slice of caramel apple pie when we went to eat dinner, and oh my Lord, if that was not the most amazing pie ever. So we're going to add a few extra ingredients to our pie this year and see how it works. First thing going into the bowl with our apples, like I said, we have the tablespoon of lemon juice down in there, and I just add that while I'm peeling and slicing the apples so that they're not very brown. But we're going to add in 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 3/4 of a teaspoon of ground cinnamon, 1/8 of a teaspoon of nutmeg, and we're going to toss it all around. Now we want to make sure our apples get nice and coated in the mixture and break up these pieces. Oh, the cinnamon and nutmeg smells so good already. Okay, so we have our oven preheating to 425. I'm going to scooch this over. We'll put our pie crust down in the bottom of this. The coffee is here just for emotional support, y'all. You will need 2 pie crusts for this. You can make your own pie crust if you want. I just always buy these jumbo boxes of pie crust. That way I can pull them out and have them at the ready. The only downside is I freeze mine, so sometimes they tend to crack or just break a little bit. You can push them back together, but you do have to make sure you allow time for them to thaw. So I'm just going to push this all down into the bottom of my pan. Beautiful. Now here's the part where we're adding some extra in. So I'm just sprinkling in the bottom of our pie shell some pecans. I'm not measuring, but just a thin little layer. And then just a little bit of caramel syrup. If you have access to the kind you would put over like caramel apples, that would be my preference. But I went to the two closest grocery stores to me and they didn't have any. So I'm using what I have. I'm going to add in some of our apples. I'm probably going to have to add a little bit more. I love having, I know this sounds crazy, but I love having to add more apples in because that's why I slice them in half. I like a full packed apple pie. I don't want the pieces falling apart. I don't like the shell, the top crust kind of doming in. So let's slice one more apple and toss in there with this. Okay. I'm just going to mix this in with some more of that cinnamon sugar mixture. So these are coated also. Now we're going to add in another thin little layer of pecans, and like this, just a few sprinkling. We don't want a ton. We're not making a pecan pie, but we do want every slice to have some. And then we're going to top it with the second half of the apples. And I want this to be making, this to be making a dome so that when I put this top crust on and it starts to cook, these apples will, when they settle down, they bake and soften and everything, they will still be creating a nice full pie. A little bit more caramel syrup across here. We're going to lay on a next pie crust. Okay. And we want to press it down so that it adheres to this other edge. If I have to take off outside pieces, that's okay. So just 2 final steps and our pie is ready to go in the oven. You want to make sure you give it some air holes so that the air can escape. If you don't do it, the pie will create it, and that could end up in a disastrous explosion. So just give it some pretty little pie holes before it goes in. And then cover the edge of your pie crust for at least the first 30 minutes or so. That way it does not burn. There are fancy little doohickeys that do this exact same job, but use sheets of aluminum foil and no extra dishes. I say that. I have some of the little pie edge covers for my mini chicken pot pies that I use, and that's more. I don't know. But anyway, this will save your pie crust edges from burning in that first little bit. So we'll put this in the oven at 425 for about 45 minutes. At about the 30-minute mark, like I said, we'll remove these aluminum foil pieces so the rest of that can get nice and brown as well. And then we will see y'all back for the next dessert. So next on our agenda for baking today is cranberry bread. Now, I am completely devastated right now because I pulled out my cranberry bread recipe a few days ago, and now I can't find it. So we're trying a new version that looks about like what I remember from mine. So after we taste it, we'll have to tweak it and see. But I'm hoping that little 5x7 card shows up because that was a tried and true recipe and I need it back. But this is going to be our breakfast for the morning we leave on our trip. So we like to have this just, I mean, it can be like a breakfast bread. It's kind of like a cross between a bread and cake, but it's very festive with the cranberries and everything in it. I've seen a lot of versions with orange. I don't use orange in mine, just my personal preference. But if that's what you like, go for it. So, anyway, we're going to get straight into it. I'm trying to get me another little spoon. But first thing in our dry ingredients bowl, we're going to add in 4 cups of flour. This is making 2 loaves, like those little, the regular loaves, like little mini loaves of bread. So 4 cups of all-purpose flour, 2 teaspoons of baking soda, a half teaspoon of salt, and 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon. We're just going to mix this all together It's best if you sift it, but I'm skipping that step. That way you make sure you get out any clumps and all of that. But this is just our dry mixture. Getting it all over me already. So in this bowl, I have 2 cups of chopped honeycrisp apples and 2 cups of roughly chopped fresh cranberries. We're just going to take a couple spoonfuls of our dry mixture and sprinkle over it. And this is definitely not something you have to do, but I'm going to show you why. You ever make something like some breads or some cakes and everything sinks to the bottom? Well, if you do this part, it will help keep it from sinking. Everything. Our pie is ready, but keep everything from sinking to the bottom of your breads. So we're just dusting them. Now you could do the same thing with just a little bit of flour, but I just use the mixture that we're going to be using anyway. Okay, we'll set that back to the side. Now we're going to make our wet mixture. Well, let's go ahead and toss in our nuts. So usually I would add walnuts. Y'all, I'm getting flour all over me. I would use walnuts in my cranberry recipe, but I can't find what I did with those either. So I'm going to use about a cup of pecans. There we go. Down into this as well. You would think in this little bitty camper, how could we lose so much stuff? And I say we because Michael was here when I took the recipe out, so I'm hoping I didn't like pack it in his bag or something. Alright, so in our wet mixture, we're going to crack 4 eggs. We're going to add in 2/3 of a cup of vegetable oil, and y'all see I dropped one of my cranberries down in it. It will be fine. 1 1/3 cup of brown sugar. You can use regular granulated sugar if you want. 2 teaspoons of vanilla and 1/2 cup of applesauce. And my kids' applesauce things are about 4 ounces, so we're just going to use that. I'm going to scoop a little bit from this other cup because this is just under 4 ounces. But I'll have the rest of it for lunch today. Or with lunch, I should say. There we go. Alright. I'm going to break our yolks and just mix this all around. Alright, y'all. So now that our wet ingredients are all mixed, we're going to pour them into our dry ingredients. Okay, and now we're going to fold in to all of our apples and walnuts and things. Alright, y'all. So we're going to spray the bottom of our pans and pour this all in. Into the oven at 350. These are going to go for about 50 minutes. We'll check on them along the way, but you want to make sure a toothpick going in comes out clean. What you think? You like it? You like the caramel in our apple pie, or you think it's better without it? It's better? What about the pecans? You like it better without it, or they're good? Thatcher, what you think? You like the pecans and caramel in it? Do you think I should leave them out next time? Yeah, you like it better just plain apple pie? Alright, so we have a split decision. She always likes more caramel. But we shall see. He usually is more of a classic kind of person.